Do you feel busy and stressed all the time? Is your attention fragmented? Is it hard to focus and do the hard things that you really need to do? Do you have anxiety? Do you feel like everybody else is doing better than you? If so, stick around. This video is for you. Okay guys, so if you want to achieve any worthwhile goal, make money, start a business, have that relationship, then you have to understand this concept of a digital detox and know what these large companies are doing to us. Now, to be honest, this is a topic that I find quite difficult to talk about. I get quite angry about it because not only does it hijack us, our attention and our ability, but it has a profound impact on our kids, which I'll get into later. Okay, now to understand this, our brains have an ancient reward system that hasn't changed in thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's essentially the same brain our hunter-gatherer ancestors had. Now, this brain was designed for survival. If we saw an antelope running across the field, a berry in a bush, we caught a fish, or maybe somebody in our tribe paid us a compliment or some attention, we would get a hit of a chemical called dopamine, right? Dopamine is the reward or the motivation chemical in our brain, and it's critical for our survival. Without it, we'd get nothing done. Now, this makes sense, right? Because all of these things I described are pro-survival, and they help us survive and thrive in that ancient environment. The trouble is we don't live in that environment anymore. And large companies, junk food companies, advertisers, tech companies, gambling companies, they know about this ancient reward system, and they have used their knowledge of this to essentially hack into our brains, hijack our attention, and it causes us a lot of harm that people don't realize. Everybody thinks the more tech, the better. I don't agree. Like, for example, my kids came home from school. They were about 6, 7 years old. Dad, we've been on Minecraft, right? We hadn't let them use technology to that point. And they're thinking, the school's thinking, isn't it great? We're up with the technology. Look at us. And I'm thinking, no, they're not going to have a shortage of technology in their lives. And that made me really cranky, right? So it's everywhere. It's hard to avoid. And we have to have an understanding about it if we're going to live in this modern world. So how this works, essentially, we get rewarded for putting in very little effort. Just by clicking a video, getting a like on a post or a comment, we get a hit of dopamine and we go, wow, that was good. And we become accustomed to that and we seek more of that, right? And these companies know this, and they essentially dole out things that give us hits of dopamine with very little effort. They've also found that if they dole these things out randomly, that we become even more addicted and our attention gets hijacked even more. Now, poker machines, for example, are a good example of this, right? The poker machines definitely hand out a random reward. Okay, most people know that if you play poker machines long enough, you're going to lose. But people get addicted. They can't help it, and they gamble and they gamble and they gamble. What they figured out was when they took away the lever on poker machines and they made it so you just press a button, so there was less friction and the rewards came even quicker, that people gambled more. Right, so at tech companies like Facebook and whatnot, they even used gambling research in the design of their apps. Now the trouble is, essentially, phones, like I'm saying, have been designed to be addictive. They've used gambling research, and now everybody has them in their pocket 24 hours a day. Anyway, let's back up here a little bit. Okay, I was born in the early 80s, and I know what it's like to have technology and to not have technology. So we got our first computer when I was 12 years old. I got a smartphone around 30. So I know what technology was like. I know what life was like before technology and after. Now, if you're a younger person, you may not understand, like you may not have any reality on this because you might have had good internet and computers and phones around you your whole life. And look, I won't lie to you, technology is fabulous in many ways. I remember being really bored as a kid and a teenager, waiting for a bus at home as a teenager. People were hard to contact. Now I listen to a podcast when I'm doing chores around the house. If I need to fix something, I can YouTube it, right? I'm not saying that all technology is bad, but we have to realize that it's a double-edged sword. Now, guys, these companies, these large tech companies, are not to be trusted. They are seriously unethical, and they will put profit before anything. We all know that they've used gambling research to design their apps. We all know they're addictive. But what a lot of people don't realize is that their shady tactics are largely responsible for the huge political divide we have in the West at the moment. They would rather get people clicking on outrageous headlines that aren't true than put the truth out there because they make less money. Like Facebook, for example. There was a whistleblower from Facebook called Frances Hogan, and she released a bunch of documents which have shown that Facebook had internal research that they knew they were doing serious psychological harm to young people, especially young girls. It was leading to eating disorders, suicides, all kinds of things. And what did Facebook do? Nothing. They covered it up, right? Inexcusable in my book. So it gets worse. There was a massacre of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. There was ethnic cleansing in Ethiopia. People died. Lots of people died. And Facebook didn't do anything about the hate speech and the misinformation that their platform was spreading. Did nothing about it. Does this sound like a company we should trust with our children's attention? I don't think so, right? I think everybody should delete Facebook, to be honest. If we back up for a moment here, so what essentially happens is our dopamine system from using our phone or eating junk food or whatever the behavior is gets overstimulated and essentially kind of worn out. So if we think of it like this, if you're an alcoholic, if you drink beer, you start with you don't need much beer to get drunk. But if you drink more beer, you need more and more beer to get drunk. The same thing happens with dopamine. Right, we need stimulation, we need more and more stimulation to get the same effect. And if this happens and your dopamine and your reward system becomes overstimulated over time, then doing something that's a bit more boring, like work around the house or working on a project or, spending time with your kids or your family, becomes boring in comparison to, for example, sitting on your phone, scrolling through Facebook, right? Because you don't get the same level of dopamine, right? It's that our reward system gets screwy and gets overstimulated. I remember a while ago, I watched a video about dopamine detox. I like to just call it digital detox. I think that's simpler. And I went for quite a few weeks with no technology at all. And after a couple of days, I found myself sitting there doing a crossword. Like, I haven't done a crossword forever. I would find it so boring when I'm doing a crossword. But a crossword became quite pleasurable, right? That's how out of whack my dopamine system was. Now, a couple of things you can do. Obviously, everyone who's got kids, I think you should limit your kids' exposure to technology quite a lot. Adding barriers to the use of anything you find addictive, I think, is useful. For example, on my phone, I installed an app called Freedom, and what this does, it actually shuts down all the addictive apps on my phone at certain times of day. Like at bedtime, mine shuts off at 10:30 and doesn't come on till like 9 in the morning, right? So I can't use it during those times, and it's just enough to break that cycle and make you use them less. I find if it's junk food you're addicted to, people say that abs are made in the kitchen. Actually, I think abs are made at the supermarket. If the stuff's not in your house, you're not going to eat it, right? Don't go shopping hungry, go shopping full. That helps a lot. And getting enough sleep, I think, is critical as well. Watch my sleep video for more information on that. But I find it much easier to resist these things when you're well rested. So I hope that helps. Sorry, it's a bit of a ranting video this time, but it is something that I feel pretty passionate about. And before I go, guys, one last thing. Some of you may or may not be aware, but over the last few months, I've been recording something called our myofascial mastery program. Now, this has come about for a number of reasons. The main one is I've noticed that a lot of the self-help techniques people do at home, stretching and exercise, tend to be quite ineffective. They take a long time, and you stop doing them, the results drop off pretty quickly. So this program is about is called myofascial release, which I like it because it's a method you can use at home using balls and rollers. I mean, you need to know what you're doing, hence the course. but the change you make is quite permanent. It's great for improving your flexibility, reducing your pain, helping your movement patterns, and it's good to give you more energy as well. You don't need any special equipment, and of course, like I said before, it can be done at home. Okay, so let's get into this a little bit. What is fascia? Now, we think of it like this. So let's say you're wearing a suit that's 5 sizes too small and it's really tight. So that's what fascia does. It wraps around things, and we have a lot of fascia through our body in different areas. When you study anatomy, typically the fascia is just cut away and removed. It never was thought to be important, but we now know that the fascia is actually really important. So, okay, the fascia goes around each, see, this is a muscle here, so it goes around each muscle, it goes around each fascicle, which is a portion of a muscle, and it goes around each muscle fiber, and you even have it around the myofibril, which is even a smaller part of a muscle fiber. So it goes right through your muscle, and it's really, really strong. Fascia is as strong as steel by weight, so it's really tough. And we have it in other areas as well. But the thing with this is fascia, as we age and as we injure ourselves over our lives, it becomes very dehydrated and very sticky. It becomes contracted, and it can also become adhesed, which means it sticks to things around it. And fascia actually runs in lines through the body. So muscle and fascia, they run together in different lines. So, if we have a problem, say in our calf down here, this could cause a problem in our mid-back or up into our neck, for example. So the beauty of this is you can release this at home, and the results are pretty permanent. Like I've always had a right tight calf and a tight hamstring, and I had no luck stretching for years. It would sort of get a bit better, but it pretty quickly plateaued, and I just had to put up with that side being tight. But by doing myofascial release and knowing which muscles to do, I was able to improve the flexibility on that side remarkably. And, the results are quite permanent. I haven't had to do it much at all to maintain that, which is great. So, the course, it's got over 40 videos, and we try and explain to you not just how to release each area, but which areas you need to release in what order, and how to figure out a good routine for you, because everybody's different. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description. We'll have a sale, periodically on the course. So keep an eye on that, and I'll try my best to keep you informed if we are having a sale. Thanks for watching.